Hello and welcome to Prepare to Prosper's weekly live stream. We're going through the Bible here on the Wednesday live streams with the plan to get to David and his mighty men, but the goal along the way to learn how they got to the point where David and his mighty men were there and where Israel was at, and all the lessons we can learn along the way. I started with Abraham, the first of the patriarchs, and we're working our way there. When we're done with this series, we're going to move on to probably some basic preparedness series. We're going to mix things up. Man, the wind's moving my notes around a lot. I guess that's what I get for live streaming out stores. So last week we talked about the parting of the Red Sea and the 10th plague and all that stuff. Today we're going to just be discussing how right after the Red Sea, right after seeing God triumph over the gods of Egypt and God showing his power over them and God showing his power over Pharaoh and parting the Red Sea and rescuing them. As soon as they get free, they start whining and complaining. And we're going to go through that and look at the lessons we can learn from the people of Israel while they were going through this. So to start out with, they get through the Red Sea. 3 days later, this is how little it took. They start complaining that they're running out of water, and the water there in that area they can't drink. It's some translations it's bitter. Could be brackish water. It could be water with some sort of minerals in it, like sulfur or something like that makes it hard to drink. I don't really know. My guess is brackish water, but no matter, because they're right there by the sea. But no matter what it is, they can't drink the water, and they're complaining and whining about it. And they don't really ask God for help. What they do is they just complain about how much the water sucks and that they're going to die. And they're like, we'd be better off if we were back in Egypt. We'd be better off if we died in Egypt. We'd be better off as slaves in Egypt. This sucks. Why are we here? And they were there to worship God, and so God could establish a place where they could live together and be and worship him and be his people and receive the blessings that come along with being God's people. And 3 days into it, they're already complaining. We do the same thing. We get something new and nice, and it's not perfect, and we start complaining about it, or things don't work out quite the way they planned. People tend to complain about it. Like, I wish my computer was faster. My phone I live stream on and do record my YouTube videos on. I wish it was faster. I wish I had more land. I try not to complain about those things. What I try to do is be thankful for what I do have and what God has given me and provided for me. But oftentimes I complain. But God hears them complaining, and this particular time he doesn't wait for them to ask. He just goes ahead and gives Moses directions on how to make the water drinkable, and Moses does what God tells him to. God performs a miracle and makes the water drinkable for them. What we should be doing is praying when we're in tough situations and letting things, and we should pray and thank God continuously. And this is something I need to work on better, is praying and thanking God for what I do have. But also we need to pray and ask God to help us in situations where we need help. And we shouldn't be praying, oh God, I wish I had a faster phone. I wish I had a faster computer. I wish I had a bigger TV. No, pray when we actually need something. And we should learn to be content with the good things we have. I mean, if you're watching this, obviously you got some good things. Life's not too tough if you have time to sit down and watch a live stream or watch this later as a recorded video. So then they have good water. Next thing you know, they're whining and complaining. Oh, I should go back to the water. So the way Moses makes the water drinkable is he takes his staff and he hits a rock with it, and the rock splits open, water comes out of it. Let me see if I included that in my notes. Yes. So that's going to be important later. Actually, I think that time he just threw his staff in the water and made it drinkable. Later he hits a rock. We'll get to hitting the rock later. Anyway, so next thing you know, they're whining and complaining that they don't have any food. They've gone through all the food they brought, all the bread they've gone with them. So God's like, all right, I'll provide food for them. And he gives them some directions. Moses elaborates on the directions and explains all the questions they have. And the next morning they get up, and where they would normally have dew on the ground, there's these flaky white things. In my mind, I see them as like potato flakes, but I don't really know. And they didn't really know what it was either. They call it manna, which means I don't know what it is, or what is this, something like that. And but when they get hungry, they don't just say, "Hey, we're hungry. God, can you help us?" They say, "God, why are you doing this to us? Moses, why are you doing this to us?" In Egypt, when we were slaves, we had bread, we had cucumbers, and life was great. Well, life was not great. They were forced into hard labor and beaten. They did have enough food to eat, though, but that's just because the Egyptians wanted to keep them alive to use them as labor. They didn't think of them as feeding them to take care of them. They thought of them feeding them like we put gas in a car. If you don't put gas in the car, it won't take you to work. They don't feed their slaves. The slaves can't build things for them. So anyway, God gives them manna. They have the directions of manna. They're supposed to only gather as much as they need. So they go out, and it doesn't matter what they do, how much they gather. Everybody had gathered enough for what they need. Now, a few people decide, hey, what we're going to do is save some of this. We're not going to eat our fill today, and we'll save some for tomorrow. And when they got up in the next day, it was full of maggots and rotting and stinking and stuff. And that's because we're supposed to rely on God's provision and rely on God to help us. Now, as a prepper, I store up food and have extra food and stuff like that. Because we're living in a time of plenty, we can afford to do that. And then I could use that food if I need it in emergencies, or I could be a blessing to other people and give them food when they need it. But I still try to rely on God every day. And something I need to do that this lesson and the one before it have reminded me of, I need to every day get out a journal and write what I feel blessed to have. And write down what God has given me. That way, on days I feel like I don't have enough and don't have what I need, I can go look through that and look at all the stuff that God's given me and all the blessings that I do have. But also at this point, this is the first time we see that they're not supposed to do things on the Sabbath, and they're supposed to rest. So 5 days, they're only supposed to gather enough for that day. On the 6th day, they'll gather twice as much, so that way they don't have to gather anything on the Sabbath. And then when the 6th day comes around, not a lot of them or some of them didn't gather enough for the next day. And then on the Sabbath, they're like, "Hey, God, why didn't you give us this?" They're not listening to God's commandments. They're not relying on God to help them. They're whining and complaining, and then complaining that God's not doing enough, and God's not taking care of them, and God's not doing it their way. And We all do this. We all complain. And we all complain to God that God's not doing it the way we want to do it. We want things to be done. And that's really hard, especially as Americans and as Westerners, to realize that we have what we need if we just go get it and rely on God to help us. Rely on God to help us have a job. Rely on God to help us when we need help. Like I'll confess, I just made a mistake. I just realized I made a mistake. And I'm going to confess this publicly. So I just had a phone interview, and I knew what time the phone interview was going to be, and I should have spent some time in prayer, praying about it beforehand, asking God to help me do well in the interview, so that way I could help provide for my family and meet our goals and be able to have enough money to be blessing to others. Like I said, we all do these kind of things. We all screw up. Don't do what we should do. Okay, so now they got the manna. They got all the bread they need. Then they're like, we want meat. We're tired of just having bread. We want meat. Well, God's pretty fed up with them whining and complaining at this point. He's given them fresh water. He's freed them from Egypt. He saved their lives from Pharaoh. He's given them water. He's given them bread to eat. And now they're still whining and complaining and saying they'd rather be slaves in Egypt than free to worship God. So God's like, oh, you want meat? I'll give you meat. And this is where I think, this is where it, well, I don't think. This shows that God has a sense of humor, because they wake up the next day and there's like a waist high pile of quail as far as the eye can see. I don't know if they were live quail, if they're dead quail, and they had to. I don't really know the details. It just says there's a waist high pile of quail as far as the eye could see. It says how much of a walk it was, but it's far. And they're happy for a while, and then eventually the quail run out, and they complain about. Or well, then eventually they complain that there was too much quail, and then they complain when the quail run out. All they do is complain and bellyache, and like I keep saying, we do the same thing. We're never satisfied with what we have. It's something I need to work on myself. This Bible study is as much for me as it is for anybody else. And I also need to work on helping the kids learn that they can be more satisfied with what they have. They got plenty of video games. They got TVs and all this crap, and they still complain sometimes. And I need to do a better job of teaching them to be content with what they have. I also need to do a better job of especially with Daniel, showing that Daniel, because today's his 20th birthday, showing him that we're providing what he needs in life, but he needs to learn to rely on God and start providing that stuff for himself and not just relying on us for everything. And that's hard. I've only been in his life for 4 years, so I'm still learning how to do this too. He's learning how to be an adult, and I'm learning how to raise kids at the same time, and I don't really know how to help a teenager all that well become an adult. I mean, I've been working with scouts all my life, and I used to be a teenager and became an adult. But life's hard. Anyway, good news is I just saw a dragonfly. We're getting more and more dragonflies. Part of that is because, and we're working on it. It's going to be a video probably in a couple of weeks, maybe a month. We're tearing down the old playhouse because the kids are too old and too big for it. The second floor of it's 6 foot tall. So with the floor joists, it's less than 6 foot tall, and the kids are both almost 6 foot tall, and they're 14 and 20. They don't want to play in a playhouse, so We're tearing down the playhouse. We're teaching them working with them so they help tear it down. They can learn how to use tools a little bit better. But anyway, we're tearing down that playhouse, and then we're going to move the pool it's a 12-foot pool. The kids are too big for it too. We're going to move it where the playhouse is, and that'll mean we clean up around the pool better, because it's a disaster over there of stuff and weeds growing up around it. Anyway, after we move the pool, right now the pool isn't being well taken care of, but it's about that much water in the bottom of it, and it's full of frogs and some water bugs and all kinds of good stuff, and no mosquito larvae, which I'm really happy about. That I don't have to put a BT dunk in there to kill the mosquito larvae and worry about killing other things. But because we have that pond, we're getting lots of that pool. Eventually that pool will be our pond. But we have lots of mosquitoes. We're getting lots of baby frogs. We have hundreds and hundreds of tadpoles and a handful of baby frogs we just noticed yesterday. But anyway, that's an upcoming video. I just saw the dragonfly and got happy, which is good, because this video is this live stream outline's kind of depressing. So they move their encampment. God tells them to move the encampment. They do. They're wandering around, and they get in an area where there's no water at all, and they're whining and complaining that they're running out of water again. So Moses goes, and this time he goes and takes his staff and hits a rock, and the rock splits open, and fresh water comes out of it. Now later we see, I want to say it's James, says the rock followed them around. I don't know, that's weird. I don't know if it's that it literally, the rock like rolled behind them, or if every time they showed up at a new camp there was same rock or similar rock already there that water could come out of. I really don't know the details, other than he said the rock followed them around. That's one of the things I plan on finding out when I get to heaven, is what exactly does that mean. Anyway, Moses hits the rock, water comes out of it, and because they have water, they can live. Now later we see Jesus saying that he is the water. The water of life comes from him, and that he has the water of life. And anybody who follows him, and whoever becomes a servant of his and repents and actually follows his teachings and does what Jesus wants us to do, that any of us that do that, he'll give us that water of life that will sustain our life even forever. Now, later, we're not going to see it in this discussion, but later on, they get in another situation where they can play, and Moses is supposed to speak to the rock, and water comes out. Well, Moses gets mad because he has anger issues. We already talked about that a little, but Moses has some serious anger issues. And Moses hits the rock, and Moses ends up getting punished for that, because he's supposed to just speak to the rock. Because the first time Jesus comes, he's struck down. He's crucified. The second time Jesus comes, bringing the water of life with him, people speak badly about him, and he speaks to them. He does fight with them, but they don't strike him down. And this rock was supposed to be a metaphor for that. It also says in the New Testament that Jesus is the cornerstone that they built, that the builders rejected. They were supposed to build everything on, but they didn't. And then we get the parable of the guy who builds his house on the sand, and his neighbor builds his house on the rocks, and a flood comes and washes the house on the sand away. The house built on the rock with a solid foundation is fine. I believe this is all metaphor together with this rock and that's in the desert with them, that we're supposed to all we're supposed to be building our lives on Jesus and having Jesus as the cornerstone, the foundation of our lives. And we need to do a good job as husbands to help our wives. Well, first off, we're supposed to do it ourselves and constantly be improving upon that for ourselves. Also, we're supposed to be leading our wives and teaching our wives, and helping them to do the same thing. And we're supposed to work together with our wives to teach our children. And like I said, I've only been a father for 4 years. Sarah's a widow. I'm a widower. Uh, I'm doing the best I can and trying to do more to be a better example to them. All right. Now in my notes, I have reflections and parallels the modern life. I think we touched on that as we went. So I'm just going to skip that and go to the end. So if you like this sort of thing, if you want to, if you're into homesteading preparedness or you want to join and or follow me on YouTube on how to live a better life. Well, I'm struggling to live a better life from my struggles. Do the YouTube algorithm thing, like, subscribe, share, all that crap. It'd be nice. It'd be nice to someday have a good enough audience on YouTube that I make money, but I really want to help people more than anything else. And if you want to join me and actually have a discussion with other people about homesteading preparedness and living out our calling that God has for us, join me on Telegram. I don't do enough there, and we don't have a lot of people on the Telegram channel, but I want that to be a discussion. I want that to be where the real interaction happens, so we can all work together to make ourselves better. And that's Prepare to Prosper on Telegram, or you can search or go to t.me/prepare to prosper to join that discussion and join us over there. Next week, we're going to discuss the giving of the commandments and the giving of the law, probably. And we might get to the golden idol. I don't know. We'll see. And that'll get us most of the way through Exodus. So, like I said, if you like this kind of stuff, homesteading preparedness, or discussions about living out our calling, this is the place for you. And I'm going to stop rambling now. But remember, we prepare today so we can prosper tomorrow. God bless you.